Hi everyone, and welcome to our second official segment of our practice class. This class is geared towards those of you who are reading music, and that's anything that looks like this, where the music notes are written on the staff. So let's talk about the first steps that you should do when you're sitting at home getting ready to practice. Number one should always be, what is my bench height and how far am I sitting away from the piano? Make sure you get that correct. There is another video that explains all of that in more detail, so go check that out. And once you feel like you're at the right height, the correct distance, then you are ready to start practicing. So step 2 is going to be open up your book to your first song. Let's take a look at it with our eyes first. Now this is a very important step because when we take the time to look at it with our eyes, we may catch things that we wouldn't have if we just sat down and played it right away. So this is training your eyes to look at the details of the music first. Now the first thing I would look for is, what are all of my notes? I would go through, I would point to those notes by saying, hey, that one's middle C, that's F, and so on, and then reminding myself where those notes live on the piano. A very important step. The next thing I would figure out is, where are my hands going to go on the piano? Are they going to be here? Are they going to be farther apart? Do I move hand positions at all throughout the song? Things like that. Now the next step before you play it for the first time is going to be to look through at all of the rhythms that you have. Do you see any half notes? Do you see any dotted half notes? And so on. If you're a more advanced reader, you might be looking at some eighth notes. You're going to remind yourself, how fast do eighth notes go? How long do I hold half notes for? And maybe even picking a note on the piano to practice those. Like if I was to practice a half note, I could go 1, 2, and that would be good. And then if I was going to do eighth notes, I would pick a steady beat in my head. Something like that. You can mess around with that all you want, just to get your brain and your body ready to feel a steady beat. So once you've gone through the notes and the rhythms, the next thing is going to be, let's play it for the first time. After you play it for the first time, you're going to sit and evaluate, how did I do? Did I get all those notes and rhythms correct? If not, where were the spots where I didn't? And then you're going to go through to those very specific spots and practice just those spots by themselves till you're confident. Then back up a measure or two and see, can you play through that spot successfully? If you can, then that spot's probably okay now. And then proceed through all the other spots until you feel confident with everything. Before the next run through, you're going to look at the details of the music. So if you've learned what a tie is, or a slur, or staccato, legato, all those things, accent marks, if there's any of those items in your song, point them out and remind yourself what they mean, so that on this next run through, you can start applying those details to your music. And then, of course, with those details, the most important part of it is going to be, am I going to be playing those details on a loud side or a soft side? So looking for those fortes, pianos, mezzo forte, mezzo piano, and so on. Okay, you just played it for the second time. How did you do? Did you get all the details in order? Did you remember your louds and softs? Again, if you forgot them in some spots, you're going to practice just those spots by themselves. Or if you need a little added reminder, you can always use a colored pencil or highlighter to mark those certain spots like dynamics, to make them stick out to you a little bit more on your page. Feel free to do that as much as you want. I still do that to this day. I find it very helpful. So I think you should definitely try it at home. After you have done your problem spots, then you can go through for the third time and see how you did on that third try. If you want to practice some of those spots, again, that would be good. And then I would leave the song. for that day or until later that day if you want to come back. Because your brain is probably getting very tired at this point, so you probably need a break. So go get some water, maybe come back, and if you have note reading flashcards at home, go through and review the notes you know, quizzing yourself, time yourself, see how fast you can answer one of those cards, make it fun. And your parents can help you with that at home. They can hold the cards and they have the answers on the back. So for those of you who aren't musicians, you don't have to memorize those too. You can just look at the answer on the back. Okay, once you feel like your brain has kind of had a little break from playing song, maybe tackle the second song, and you're going to do all those same steps again. And then after that, if you feel like you need another break, you can do some theory work that you were assigned, maybe answering just 3 to 5 questions a day, depending on how much you were given. Try to break it into small chunks, and then come back and tackle another song if you have one. So those are just a few of my practice tips to help you remember to look at the details. Also reminding yourself, am I playing in a good technique? So are my hands staying in that natural, rounded hand shape there? Am I staying in alignment, the straight line on my forearm? All of those things while you're playing. I know it can be overwhelming and a lot to think about. If you do it in smaller chunks, it's a lot more manageable for your brain to remember than if you try to do everything at the same time. You're probably guaranteed to miss something if you try to do everything all at once. So how often should you be practicing at this stage? Well, I would recommend that you try to practice as much as possible. I typically recommend no less than 4 days a week, somewhere between 4 and 6. I do like to give at least one rest day for your brain. It's healthy. So practicing more often is going to help you remember the concepts more than if you practice, let's say, for an hour on Monday, and then you didn't practice again until Saturday, and you did an hour, but your lesson was on Tuesday. You're probably not going to remember very much that way. Now, if you're looking for a certain amount of time to practice each day, it kind of depends on your age. If you're really young, don't sit down for more than 15 minutes at a time. Give yourself a break, maybe come back later in the day and do the rest of your songs. If you are older, I would say you could practice up to 30 minutes at this stage, especially if you are more advanced, like in the level 1, level 2A of the Faber series, somewhere around there. Should definitely be shooting to practice around 20 to 30 minutes. That's going to make sure that you are really looking through all those details correctly. You may not need to practice quite that long as you get to the end of the week, because you're going to find your songs are pretty polished probably at that point. So feel free to sight read some music, maybe flip through your book, see if you can sit down and play it, see what you miss. Sight reading is a very good skill to practice. Make sure if you've learned scales at this stage that you're reviewing those scales every day. Chords, all of that too. So there's lots and lots you can practice, so I don't think practicing for 30 minutes is going to be a problem. Now, as a parent watching this, how can you be involved in your child's practice time? Well, like I mentioned earlier, you can help them by quizzing their note reading. If you have the flashcards or this app I use called Tenuto, you can help make sure they're incorporating that into their practice. You can also help them with bench height, and if they need a little stool or whatever, helping them get acclimated for practice so that they're playing with proper technique. You could also kind of watch them from a side view. Do they look aligned? Are they giving that natural curvature right here, a straight arm right here? And if you see them kind of get out of alignment like this, or playing with flat fingers, then you can lovingly remind them, hey, remember about the curved hand shape, or remember to play on the tips of your fingers. Things like that is going to be easier for you to identify sitting from a different angle. And sometimes it is for someone sitting like where I am right now, so the student. Another thing that you can help them out with is tapping a steady beat along with them. So during lessons, I'll take the top of the piano or my lap, or you can even clap, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just a nice steady pace, nothing crazy or too fast. And then see, can they keep up with that speed? Are they rushing a little bit or slowing down in a certain spot? Listening for that would be very helpful, and reminding them like, hey, maybe you should go through this spot again and remember to hold that half note for 2 beats or something like that. And then always looking at the teacher notes from the lesson. I try to put everything really specific in there so that the student and you as well know what they should be going through, how they should be practicing, or what they should be reminding themselves of. So take a look at that for them. And then of course encouraging them in their practice time. Everybody needs a reminder to go practice. So encouraging them like, hey, your homework's done, let's go practice piano now. And sometimes you just sitting there with them, even if it's part of the time, is going to be really encouraging that you're in this process with them. They're going to feel that support and encouragement. So always be encouraging. The beginning stages are always hard because you're learning something brand new with a lot of thought process. So the more the parent can be involved, the better it's going to be for the child to stick with it through this little rough patch and get to enjoying and loving piano. Okay, well that's all for this video. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me or you can leave a comment in the comments below. Thanks everyone.